Well, I think it's a valuable legacy to leave, to let people know that the takeaway for me when I have a synchronicity experience, I smile, I laugh, people I'm talking to are smiling and laughing, and then we realize we're all connected in some way. Humanity is one body, even though there's 8 billion of us. At the unconscious or subconscious, whatever you want to call it, level, we're all in the matrix. Somehow we are having conversations with each other unconsciously all the time. And then you love this expression, Bernie, because I know you've used it. Ken says when he meets a stranger, they're already his friend, but he hasn't met them till that moment. And that's my belief, and that's my feeling. And there's like, we're high-fiving. I'm sure you've had it to look. You have on the wall there, your most recent book, Life-Changing Synchronicities. Your life has been changed by your synchronicities, as has mine. And I feel the thing we can offer through this project, the Coincidence Project, is the realization that people say, you know what? We're all one at some level, and we need to be kind to each other
Kind is
because
really good.
we need to be kind to each other because my perception is what I do to you, I'm doing to myself at the deep fundamental level of consciousness. I'll say this, there's one spirit and there are many souls differentiated in that one spirit, the source, God, whatever you choose, anyone listening to put there. But there is something higher beyond us that's, I think, orchestrating and coordinating everything in the universe. You know, in my profession, Bernie, the number one, as a chiropractor, the number one principle is that there's an universal intelligence. Some people call that God, but we use the word universal intelligence in all matter, constantly creating and recreating matter all the time. And it's an intelligent field, and we're part of it. And that divine, whatever you want to call it, universal, is innate in all living beings, not just you and I, but all things, all life forms. So you might say there's one life force differentiated in myriad forms on this planet.
Hey, welcome back to Connecting with Coincidence. What a pleasure I have today with today's guests. Maybe 5, 6 years ago, early 2020s, I wanted to get something going about synchronicity, which I tend to use meaningful coincidences for the term. And I gathered a cohort of people we called coincidence ambassadors, writers, researchers, therapists, other professionals with a deep background in the experience and study of coincidences, synchronicity, serendipity. The Coincidence Project itself became a nonprofit in 2022, and it's dedicated to studying and advancing the understanding of meaningful coincidences. There was this one guy who stood out most to me. He's about my age and seemed convinced that he was the synchronicity expert. We became competitive. We really couldn't work together. It wasn't any fun. So he did not become a board member, although he continues to experience a lot of coincidences. We have both mellowed, and I am proud to call Ken Harris my good friend. He is our guest today, and we really did connect with coincidences. Ken experiences numerous synchronicities, some small, some large, and some beyond amazing. After I introduce him, I will ask him to tell us a recent one that blows my mind. Let us know what you think of this amazing story and some of the other ones that he will tell us. Kenneth Harris is a pioneer in holistic healing. He's a published author, chiropractor, energy healer, keynote speaker. He's the founder of the Waldwick Wellness Center in New Jersey, a multi-doctor facility providing all natural health and wellness care since 1975. Ken, glad to have you back and glad things have changed in the way they have with you and me.
Happy to be here, Bernie. And it wasn't just you and me that healed that relationship. It was chiropractic and medicine, in my opinion. We were archetypical. You and I represented two diverse approaches to wellness, but I think we crossed the bridge and we meet in the middle, which is really the heart. And so I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy we had the tumble. We went down, we did our thing, but we came back stronger than ever. And now we're buddies.
And now we're
In
buddies.
my mind, you're my buddy. I mean, I don't see you as an adversary anymore.
I don't even think of the word adversary anymore with you. So I think we're buddies too. I agree with that. And it part of the reason to say this for our audience is that being able to have highly competitive, clashing people be able to resolve in a way that Ken and I have is something that humanity needs to do a lot of. And we are representative of that because we're both interested in pretty much the same thing. And I now call my chiropractor my doctor too for a lot of reasons, uh, and not go into them. But chiropractors, those guys know a lot about the muscles in your body and the nerves, and general medicine, where I was educated, doesn't. But let's leave that part alone. Um, a big reason I wanted to talk with Ken today is because he's been going through a few problems that is a minor way of saying a lot of problems, medical problems, physical problems. And he'd had enough. And so one day he told his wife, and I'll leave the story now for you, Ken.
Well, I'm blessed to have a wonderful partner. I'm married 57 years to my wife Judith, who is I call her my earth angel. We all have angels, I think, but she's my earth angel. And she has seen me over the last year and a half. It's been a year and a half journey of challenges. I don't call them problems as much as I call them challenges, health challenges. Um, my spirit's fine, but my body is definitely hurting, as many of us in our approaching our eighth decade of life can attest to. So in Florida, we went down there this winter, and I started it getting worse and worse and worse, where my ability to walk, and I've had chronic shingles, which I contracted, unfortunately, uh, through a spinal operation last May. May 13th will be a year that I had a laminectomy with a Coflex insert, and I came out of it with a MRSA infection and shingles. And it's been very, very, very challenging, particularly the shingles. My microbiome was destroyed from the drugs, which my beautiful wife had to learn how to be a nurse and IV me for 7 weeks every single day to keep me alive because I was septic at the time. So modern medicine gave me a problem, and then they had a solution, thank God. So I'm still here. But the shingles pain has been ongoing for all this time. I haven't had one day, Bernie, of relief. It's intercostal. So every time I breathe in and breathe out, I feel it. And it can go from a 6 to a 10 level depending on the time of day and my state of consciousness. So in Florida, I noticed my walking got more challenged. The pain increased, and I got a little despondent. I'm going to be honest. I got depressed. I said, how long is this going to go on? And then my mind says, well, maybe it's time to go home. And I asked my wife, this is how it started. She thought I was joking. I said, Judy, I want to go home. She says, hey, Kenny, Jersey's very cold. We can't go back now. We got to stay here. I said, yeah, but I'm not doing well. But I really want to go home to the source. Whatever that is, Judy. I use the word God. I want to go home to the source. And we had this very difficult conversation, eyeball to eyeball, heart to heart. And we both cried. And she agreed. I said, I don't want to go to any more doctors. I don't want any more treatments. I had been to 10 different doctors, conventional and holistic. And I've tried 15 different protocols to manage this, and I haven't been able to. So, in that state of despondency, I said to her, listen, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to commit suicide, but I'm not going to eat or drink anymore. I'm going to just fade out. They say when you stop eating, stop drinking, the pain will go away, and home you go, wherever the home is, to anyone listening. So the last thing I said to her that day, after we both cried and hugged, I said, don't ever take me to another hospital, Judy, unless you find me unconscious on the floor. Call 911, I told her. I'm laughing now. And they'll take the corpse away. You don't have to deal with it. I don't want you to sit there with me. Well, 6 hours later, I had a seizure. And that's exactly what happened to me. Judy found me on the floor, unconscious, unresponsive. So she did what I told her. She called 911. They come, they do their magic. Somehow they got me revived. They got me to the ER. And they did an MRI because my head was bleeding. I had hit my head on the way down on my neck. And they discovered that I had cord pressure, spinal cord pressure, not in the IVF, but in the cord itself. And I was very, very close to becoming the doctor's, his term, a quadriplegic. And he says the only solution we have for this is we got to fuse your entire C spine from C3 to C7, which to a chiropractor is a dirty word. When we hear fusion, we don't like that. I've seen so many of them post-op that failed in my experience as a chiropractor for 45 to 50 years. But I said, well, I'm at the rope's end. I don't want to be a quad. So I agreed. The first neurosurgeon who came to see me, Bernie, he was not a good guy. He was very egocentric, and he said, "You're probably never going to walk again." Can you imagine telling that to a patient?
Yes, I can because I've heard of that hexing that doctors do to patients.
Oh, I said, "Sir, thank you, but no thank you. There's the door. I'll find somebody else." Well, the next guy comes in. He's from the Midwest. I read energy. I could see he's competent and confident and not an egomaniac as a neurosurgeon, which sometimes they become a little crazy in the head,
Yeah.
thinking they are God. But anyway, he was very, he said, listen, I think I can help you. I have a skill set, but we're going to have to fuse your spine, your entire C spine. So I said, do me a favor, just call my guy up north who did my laminectomy on my L4 and you and him have a conversation. So they did. And he came back. He said, your guy says I should do two, but my experience, I feel I need to do four. If I don't do it the first time, we're going to have to go a second time. So out of desperation, I said, okay. So I went under the knife. And he's an artist. When I look at my lateral X-ray, I don't know how they did it. They do it through the anterior of your neck. It's not the exterior.
Yay!
Yeah, they literally cut your throat.
Ugh.
Then they move your trachea and your esophagus aside and your thyroid gland, and they put these nuts, bolts, and screws in. I'm amazed. I mean, medical science has a time and a place. It's not a panacea, and neither is chiropractic, but we all have a skill set. So the bottom line was I was in the hospital for 11 days, and then I followed up with care at a rehab center for another 8 or 9 days. And here I am back in New Jersey. But I had a remarkable experience. When I came out of the surgery, all of a sudden, all the anxiety and depression left me. Now, it could have been the drugs, maybe. I don't know, but I didn't have it anymore. It was immediate. It was immediate. And so I got great care. I was very thankful for the care I received in Florida at the Naples Community Hospital, which, by the way, off the record, used to be called Never Coming Home. People used to say it's a bad place. No, I had great care. I can't say enough good things about the doctor and the nurses, who, by the way, are over overworked, understaffed, and doing their best, folks. If you're in a hospital, those poor nurses, they're not walking anymore. They're running to help people. But they got 8, 9, 10, 11 people when they should have four. So they don't have time to really be nurturing and nursing anymore, except I got some great nurses come into my room. And here's the synchronicity. I had three different nurses come to me and they said, I don't know why I'm here today. I'm laughing because they told me they should be on orthopedics, they should be on cardiovascular, but they wound up in neurosurgery. Last minute, they got transferred up to see me. And I very happily said, well, I know why you're here. And they go, really, why? I could, because you were sent here because you're the best at what you do. And they were. They were all top in their particular field. The first one comes in, and I look at her, and she looks at me. She says, tell me about it. She was the first one to ask me, tell me about yourself. What's happened to you? Why are you here? What's your history? Rather than read the chart. So I told her, my history. And then I said, yeah. And then I retired from chiropractic and I wrote a couple of books. She said, well, what are the names of your books? And I said, well, one is called Synchronicity, the Magic, the Mystery, and the Meaning. And the other one's called Second Chances from Surviving to Thriving. And I explain what they're about. And then she starts to cry. And I'm looking at her, I'm saying, did I say something offended her? I said, what's going on for you? And here's what she said to me. She said, well, Dr. Ken, my mother and father died within a 2 week time period, and I lost my faith in anything spiritual. She said, I became bereft and depressed. But then I watched PBS, this program on PBS with a guy, maybe you heard of him, Dr. Wayne Dyer. At which point I laughed. I says, yeah, I think I heard of him. As a matter of fact, I had the privilege of becoming friends with him and helping him with his own health challenges. She couldn't believe it. That to her was a validation or a confirmation that she was in the right place at the right time to meet me. So we became friends. So I said to her off the record, I said, if I'm going to rehab, which one should I go to? She says, I'm not supposed to tell you, but she looked around, but I'm going to tell you. So she told me which one to go to. She said, that's by far the best one. They're going to give you 3 hours of intensive PT every day. They're the best one in all of Florida. So I waited a couple extra days to get in there because they didn't have availability. Thank God that she told us because that was exactly where I needed to go. And while I was in the hospital, Bernie, this is another mind-blowing synchronicity. I had lots of doctors and lots of nurses, but one doctor and one nurse, when they asked me what I did and how I got here, and I told them about my book, they smiled at me and they said, oh, we know who you are. We already read your book. I'm going, you read my book? Yeah, yeah, we're into that. These two are independent of each other, which I found quite remarkable that I would meet two doctors, a doctor and a nurse in this case, who were familiar with my work and my subject. So those were some of the minor synchronicities that outworked as a result of me undergoing this cervical fusion.
So why do you call them minor? Because they're confirmations.
Well, yeah, I would say to them there were, well, the ones for me were the doctor and the nurse already read it. The one for the nurse who got her faith back, I was happy for her. And we became friends. And she gave me information. She helped me
Yeah, she
directly.
helped.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you got the best nurses sent to you.
The last minute, they all come up like, I don't know. I was laughing. I said, well, I do.
I
And I
mean,
believed that. I believed that. I said, you're the best at what you did. And I found out later they were the top in all three fields.
these, it's we both know what it's like to be egocentric or worse or better. We both know that one, but that's the sort of thing that comes along. We read your book, get the best nurses, make the best place for rehab to happen. Kind of makes you think that you're on the special side of the continuum.
Yes, but I'm going to say no one's special, Bernie. We're all unique. There's no hierarchy. I don't believe there's a hierarchy in the spiritual consciousness.
And we can argue about this, and that will be a little fun, but everybody is unique. There's no one else sitting where you are or where I am at this time and space. But there is a kind of low probabilityness in the accumulated uh, characteristics of people, so that they're actually more unique and some less unique than others. And it's an argument we can have, but there is a sense that you have when you have things like that that you happen to you, that maybe these are little nudges that say you've still got stuff to do here on Earth. And I think that has been the impact on you.
Absolutely. I feel I was graced, whatever the word grace means, given another chance. I got my third chance, not second. And yes, uh, if you live in flow consciousness, which I tend to live in, I mean, until a year and a half ago, I was never sick, ever. I mean, I didn't miss one day in practice for 45 years, but I had a home office. So a few days I had to crawl down, crawl back up, but I didn't miss a day. But I thought I was healthy, but apparently there was other stuff going on unbeknownst to me, unconsciously. So here I am. Do I feel why I came back? Yes, I believe there's more, as my friend Wayne Dyer would always say, hey, Kenny, don't die with your music unplayed. I feel I have more music, as do you. Why are we doing this? We're 80 in our 80s, for Christ's sake. Most people, they're in a rocking chair. They're not out to change the world or leave a legacy of love and healing in the world. But you and I are two of them. And that's why we found each other. And I found you through synchronicity. My massage therapist says one day, hey, you ever hear this guy, Bernie Beitman? I said, no, I never heard of him. And then I meet Eon Karis, and she tells me she's on your board of directors the very next day. And I said, oh, 2 days in a row, I hear this guy Beitman's name. So I called you up and I volunteered. I said, I'd like to participate because I think I live in the gamma state. When you're in gamma radiation frequency, brain-wise, they say that's when you're in flow. And that's when the universe, whatever that means, God, the creator, sends circumstances your way for observation and participation. And I think everybody's having them personally, but I was a high frequency coincider, as you would call me.
As I would call you, yes.
I think that's what the term we used to use, high frequency coincider.
Yep, yep. And
That's all you, Bernie. You have a listen, you got great stories. And you have a body of work that no one on this planet has around this idea of coincidence and synchronicity. Just so you know, folks, go on his website. He's got hundreds and hundreds of first-class interviews of doctors and healers all around the world discussing this subject of synchronicity and coincidence, as well as Bernie has written several books, which I highly recommend as well.
well, thanks for that commercial break. Um, the uh, what what you've done for me is start me thinking about the legacy part of it, of how do I organize my podcasts, of which there are 300 or
Hundreds.
so. I've got maybe 200 Psychology Today posts under connecting with coincidences. Um, and I've got all the stories, maybe 1,000 stories that are at various levels of put together, but there's still stories from real people about them. And you have encouraged me, and I've started to look at what I might be able to do with them. But so you know that my job right now is this book, Therapy for Humanity, and that is that that is the culmination of all the other stuff that I have done, psychotherapy and whatever. So having you there so that I can tell you about what I'm doing is really an important part of this process of trying to write this thing, Therapy for Humanity. Therapy gets into humanity, humanity gets into therapy, and it's a kind of a funny way of thinking. It's not that anybody that I've seen has written with this perspective. But I know very well that if I come up with an idea, somebody else has it also. So that's the way it works in this thing. But I appreciate your support now in the middle of my own smaller pain to try to be able to get this thing done.
Well, I think it's a valuable legacy to leave to let people know that the takeaway for me when I have a synchronicity experience, I smile, I laugh. People I'm talking to are smiling and laughing, and then we realize we're all connected in some way. Humanity is one body, even though there's 8 billion of us at the unconscious or subconscious, whatever you want to call it, level, we're all in the matrix. Somehow we are having conversations with each other unconsciously all the time. And then you love this expression, Bernie, because I know you've used it. Ken says when he meets a stranger, they're already his friend, but he hasn't met them till that moment. And that's my belief, and that's my feeling. And there's like we're high-fiving. I'm sure you've had it to look. You have on the wall there, your most recent book, Life-Changing Synchronicities. Your life has been changed by your synchronicities, as has mine. And I feel the thing we can offer through this project, the Coincidence Project, is the realization that people say, you know what? We're all one in some at some level, and we need to be kind to each other.
Kind is
because
really good.
we need to be kind to each other. Because my perception is what I do to you, I'm doing to myself at the deep fundamental level of consciousness. There's one, I'll say this, there's one spirit and there are many souls differentiated in that one spirit, the source, God, whatever you choose, anyone listening to put there. But there is something higher beyond us that's, I think, orchestrating and coordinating everything in the universe. You know, in my profession, Bernie, the number one, as a chiropractor, the number one principle is that there is an universal intelligence. Some people call that God, but we use the word universal intelligence in all matter, constantly creating and recreating matter all the time. And it's an intelligent field, and we're part of it. And that divine, whatever you want to call it, universal, is innate in all living beings, not just you and I, but all things, all life forms. So you might say there's one life force differentiated in myriad forms on this planet.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when you and other people say that we're part of something greater, I'm kind of like a here on Earth kind of guy, and I think it's a big question and a difficult one to go with what you were saying that 8 billion, but we're one. And we are part of each other. And that has been a realization that is still long coming, where we realize there's this oneness of which we are a part right here on Earth.
Right.
And there's more, but that one is a hard one for individuals right now. Why is that?
Because our senses, our five senses, tell us it's out here. Everything that controlling us is in the environment. It's not internal. And so the senses lie. They lie. And we have more than five, but those five senses keep us attached
That's,
to
yeah, that's
the
true.
physicality.
But still, the people with five senses can also say there's something God or a higher intelligence. There are, that happens as well. But even those who make that feeling stated, that there's something greater, there's a higher intelligence that's orchestrating this, have trouble recognizing that each of us is part of humanity now. And that's what I'm asking you about.
Okay, so the majority of people know not that they know not. They're asleep. The majority of people walking on planet Earth at this point. But then there are people like you and I. We're not passengers. We're part of the crew. I see, maybe this is ego, but I felt that I incarnated, I came onto Earth
Yes, you
to
did.
help to shift the planetary pattern because we're in a fallen state. I mean, it's chaos out there. I don't watch TV anymore because I mean it'll just depress you. I mean, all you hear is the bad news, but there's a lot of good news going on too. There are a lot of good people out there doing good work that you're never going to see on channel 247. But we're here's my expression. It's all of us or none of us.
Yeah.
If any remain bound, none of us are going to get free. So I reached back to you because I felt I was unkind to you. Okay. And I said, I'm being unkind to myself by being unkind to Bernie. So I made effort, concerted effort to call you, to write your letters, and we had a reconciliation. We had a healing. You finally got it that I wasn't your enemy, that I wasn't really out to get you. And I wasn't, but I reacted to a situation and it was a reaction. It wasn't a response on my part. But I wanted to heal me. So I was selfish in reaching back to you and say, you know what? I don't want to have that bad karma. I don't want this man to, every time he thinks of me, send me bad juju. And vice versa. You didn't want that coming from me, I'm sure. So we had a meeting in the heart. So that's a sidebar. But
No, it
I
isn't.
really put,
It's directly related to what I'm talking about. Is
okay.
that in order for humanity to realize that we are all in this together, it needs to start with what you just described, where there are problems in relationships that can get healed, as well as like problems with, as well as the kind of relationship you have with your wife, which is so wonderful, so connected. We need to do it one by couple, pairing by pairing, so that we make connections like this to help put together the tissue that is the collective human organism.
I agree. I think there'll be a kindle point, in making a fire, you get a certain heat. I don't think all 8 billion people are going to wake up
No.
personally. Okay. That's pie in the sky. But I don't think it takes all 8 billion. I think it takes a critical mass where it'll go through the subconscious and people will start acting and behaving differently. Years ago when I started doing energy work, no one was doing energy work. Today, everybody's doing energy work. Am I right?
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you don't get surprised anymore. It's not woo-woo anymore. It used to be woo-woo. Now medicine's doing it. I mean, they're doing therapeutic touch and operatories with Dr. Oz when he was practicing and so on. So things have shifted. There's an awakening happening. There's definitely an awakening. And I believe I got to be an optimist that there will be a point. Now, it may not be in your lifetime or my lifetime, but there will be a restoration of that realization, and we'll start being kind and loving to each other. Now, some of the spiritual teachers down the way, Buddha, Jesus, and various other ones, that's what they said. Hey,
Yeah.
guys, love one another like I've loved you. Start loving each other. Be kind to each other. Because I don't care how much money you got. We all breathe the same air. We drink water. We're on the planet. If the ship goes down, your money ain't going to do you any damn good. You could have 10 billion. Look at poor Steve Jobs. I mean, he died, right? He had $7 billion. He couldn't buy his health. He couldn't reverse his pattern. And primarily, from what I understood after reading his book, he died of pancreatic cancer and he had a deep resentment and hatred towards his father. He was never able to resolve it. And I believe that was the underlying factor why he got cancer. Because if you hold long-term resentments, life doesn't flow in a resentful form. No, life flows in a loving heart. And it's through our heart, by the way, not through this, not through the brain, that the connection's made. They're both
I
needed. Don't get me wrong. The head and the heart are needed to be coherent, but it's primarily here in the chest,
well, the heart's got the most energy coming out of it, and
electromagnetic.
when you say that, I think of it. Yes, the heart contributes a lot more than the brain does to the biofield that we have around us. But it's that biofield that I think is fundamental in all of this, that the heart drives a lot of it, but it's more than that. And being able to put biofields together for people to be able to resonate together with that energy pattern that each of us carries is becomes potentially part of the way into the future where dyads can be kind and loving with each other.
Well, you're right on. Before you speak to someone, when you meet them, your heart and their heart are already doing this, talking to each other. There's some kind of entrainment going on. And a real healer, one we call healer, no one's, we use the word healer, but no one heals anybody. Everybody heals themselves ultimately. But if you're at a high level of consciousness and you're vibrating at a certain level of frequency, and someone comes into your field, hopefully they'll come up and meet you at that level and they'll have a transference. There'll be a harmonic resonance, you might say.
Yes, yeah.
And when they leave you, they need to start generating that for themselves. Like as a chiropractor, I have people come 2, 3 times a week in the beginning to get reattuned to that frequency. And then many times they came in with no faith. I said, it's fine, borrow mine. If I believe I can help you for the time being, suspend your own disbelief and just surrender and trust and give it some time. And I got great results because of that. Not 100%, but very high. I
What do
saved
you
a lot
mean?
of people.
What do you mean by attunement? I think that's a key word here.
Well, I use the word attunement because that's everything I think in the universe is music, a tune. Now, my profession was founded on tone. That's what it says in the books. Chiropractic is founded on tone. Tone is sound, tune. And I believe the new modalities of healing will be more sound than pharmacological as we move forward. But I had practiced a form of energy healing called attunement or at one mint, where, and I did this with Wayne Dyer. I didn't know where he ended and I began. We became unified. We actually merged our fields, literally, and it was ecstatic. He came out of it and he said to me, "Did you learn that in chiropractic college?" I said, "No, I learned it in the spiritual community I was involved with." He said, "I felt like I was in heaven, and I didn't want to come back." I said, "Well, you came back because there's more work for you to do, and me too." So we came back together, but we took a trip and it was blissful and peaceful. And it's not subject to any articulation, just a state of complete peace.
Well, I think what you just described is what I'm attempting to describe in my book now, Therapy for Humanity, is that where you got with Wayne Dyer is where you got with him, is where I would like to be able to suggest as a model for how others can do something similar, where you come together in an ecstatic connection, but then you have to go back out in the world and do something like that with other people.
It's a one-on-one basis. It's, it's not going to be in an auditorium. It's individuated. I mean, my attitude is everyone I meet, as I told you, is my friend, and I want to leave them feeling better than they were before they met me. I get letters all the time. So do you, Bernie. You get, what you said or what you told me had impact on me, and we'll never know that. But I think it's going to have to be a local, act local, but hopefully have a global influence.
I very much agree with that.
Yeah. We're all walking each other home as my friend. That was another guy who I love. You knew Ramdas, and I had an opportunity to be with him. And let me tell you, walking into his room. Now, here's a guy, for people who don't know who he was. He was Richard Alpert, the professor at Harvard University, gave LSD to the students with Timothy Leary, got fired. Leary killed himself with the drugs, and Ramdas went to India and met a guru, Neem Karoli Baba, who looked at him once, Bernie. He tells the story many times and told him everything about his life. This guy on the street looked at him and told Wayne Dyer, who was a PhD psychologist, everything about his life and his family. Blew him away. I mean, he couldn't believe it. But anyway, he came back, and when I met him, 15 to 20 feet, I talk about radiance. I felt like I was walking to a cloud of peace. And I started to just resonate and quiet this because I said to him, I don't even know why I'm here. And how I got to see him was a whole other series of synchronicities. I mean, the way was open. It was made, I believe, I always felt like we're marionettes, Bernie, and it's higher force, whatever, is putting us in each other's path at different times and places for different reasons. So I always say everyone you meet is a lesson or a blessing. Sometimes what you should do next, and sometimes what you shouldn't be doing next. So pay attention to what strangers tell you, because I don't think it's haphazard or random. So meeting him, I'm sitting there with him, and he says, "How can I help you, Ken?" And I didn't even know. I said, "I don't even know why I'm here." And I closed my eyes, and I had this tremendous feeling of grief come over me, sadness. And I said, "What's going on?" And then I said, "You and I had a mutual friend. His name was Shamdas. He got killed last year in India. I want to know if he's okay. Is there any way you could help me and connect with him?" So here's what he does. He puts his head to his third eye, taps it, and he looks at me and he says, "Sham is with Krishna or God or Source. He's fine." And then there's an apparition in the room with me, Ramdas, and Sham. And I was like, okay. I started to smile. I was sad and I became happy and thankful. And that's why the way was open for me to find him because he didn't see anybody between opening the heart seminars that he did. He was in a wheelchair. He was in diapers. He was half paralyzed and in total bliss. When you looked in his eyes, there were a couple of times he had aphasia because he had been stroked 20 years prior. We communicated telepathically. He didn't have to speak anymore. We were talking at a telepathic level. It was quite an experience. I mean, he imprinted my field and changed me forever. I mean, I was not the same after having that experience with him. I don't
You
remember driving back across it was across Maui. I have no recollection. I guess you could say I got stoned, but it wasn't drugs. I got stoned on life.
Yeah, altered state of consciousness
altered
induced.
state.
So,
Right.
and without without needing drugs.
Right.
So, how do you understand this wisdom that you are accumulating? And you're really ahead of me in what I'm writing because I have, well, yes, you are, because I want to say that respectfully, because you're out there doing a lot more connecting than I have. I've been a relatively isolated person, writing books, and having some contact with people relative to you, what you've done, and it's a difference. I'm starting to get more social finally in this part of my life, and it's fun to do it, and it's fun to think as you do, and I've done it, is to meet people I haven't met before, and we have these connections, even if I never see them again. It's like it's really fun, and I have not really done that as much as you. So let me make a distinction, because while what you're doing and the description you had with Ram Dass and Wayne are what I'm trying to describe, because I'm a writer. I like to write. That's where I learned to speak, really, because I didn't do a lot of talking with people. So this is where I write. My diary in 11th grade was where I finally found a voice that I could speak to, because paper was patient. So what you're describing is what I'm trying to describe in the latter part of this book, about how people can come together in energy fields and be there almost as one. And I'll call that resonance,
Yeah.
because it's more than alignment and attunement. It's resonance that can become coherence, in which you're able to maintain it by separating and coming back together, like you can do with your wife Judith. It's like amazing. And then from that, once you're able to do that coherence back and forth, be together, be separate, comes generativity, from which we can then create something for humanity. So these are the ways I'm thinking just today, which are very familiar to you because you experience them.
Well, I would say, you've had your share of synchronicities. I mean, right behind is life-changing synchronicities.
I,
And if you want, folks, if you want to have more synchronicity, very simple. There's no magic here. When you meet someone, I'm a friendly guy. I'm an extrovert. I like people. I really do. Everybody's unique, and I love to hear their
yeah,
stories. I
that's
really
true.
do.
Yeah,
And as a psychiatrist, you've heard probably A to Z. There isn't anything you haven't heard yet. But ask questions, ask them questions, and listen to the answers. That's how synchronicities come about in my and make the pattern connection. I'm very good, and I can do it quick. And I also know if this is not someone who wants to engage me in conversation, I can say one or two things. Like they'll ask me, "Where are you from, Doc?" In Florida. I say the same place you're from. And either they get that or they don't get that, because that's what my belief system is. They look at me like, "Was this guy crazy? I'm from Illinois and he's from New Jersey and we're from the same place." So either they understand that or they don't. And they say, "Well, what are you doing here?" And here's what I get them. This is when I know I either got someone or I don't. Well, I'm just visiting. And then I wait. Aren't we all? Aren't we all just visiting, folks? When you think about it, we're here for a nanosecond in eternity. I mean, it's 60, 80, 100 years if you're lucky. I mean, lucky. I don't know how lucky it is to be
yeah,
100, but anyway.
really.
Anyway, yeah, because we associate aging with decrepitude. That's the problem. Not many people say, I want to live to be 100, because there's an image in their heads that there aren't too many vibrantly healthy 100-year-old people.
There's more and
But there
more
are a
of
lot
them.
of,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, there are a lot of 60, 70, and 80 and 90-year-olds who are healthy and fully functioning still. Aging
yeah.
doesn't necessarily require dementia and decrepitude.
Right.
You know,
This visiting.
yeah,
Um, and this is really what I'd like to see if you will answer this question.
I'll try.
Uh, it's a tough one because it's been around for many, many centuries and millennia. But each of us is visiting what? As tourists? No. Tours, yes, because it's very interesting, this three-dimensional world that we live in. It's really kind of entertaining. It can be, and kind of funny. It also has a lot of misery in it, some of which you have been experiencing and still are. I have a little bit of that. But when I look at you, Ken, today and hear what you've gone through, not the Ram Dass stories, the Dwyer's stories are very important to me now, and I hope to our audience. But what do you see your purpose here of being survived again? A very miserable, almost death experience on the floor, uh, almost dead again, because you've been that way before. What what do you feel sense is what you are here to do before you go home?
Good question. So let me go back in my history. I was a little boy and we went family camping all the time. And I was always attracted and fascinated by the nighttime sky. I always looked up, not down, and particularly to the Orion constellation. For whatever reason, that attracted me. The belt of Orion, I could find it anywhere. Later on, when I got involved with spiritual community, the mystic who started this program that I was involved with said, if you've ever had an affiliation or an affectation or an affection for the Orion constellation, rest assured that's where you came from. That's the star system from which you incarnated from. And when he said that, it resonated with me. I had a strong resonance, and I was always interested in Egypt too. Why? Why was I interested in Egypt? Fast forward, I go to Machu Picchu. This is interesting. With 16 other people, we do a pilgrimage. We do a uh, we do a summer solstice ceremony on the mountain with a shaman and an anthropologist and 16 of us. And they tell us on the winter solstice, we're going to have a vision. When the sun comes up through the temple, it's going to open your third eye up, your pineal, and you're going to see something. So I did, and I participated. I saw myself walking in the halls of Egypt in the temples as a healer in a prior, quote, lifetime. So I go to the guy, I go up to the anthropologist and I said, hey, I think I'm in the wrong place. He said, what did you see? I said, well, I was in the temples in Egypt. He said, no, no, no. Same technology that built the temples of Egypt built Machu Picchu. That's what he told me. I said, oh, now it's making sense. Now, fast forward in 1993, it's all tying in. I am reading, this is going to sound real woo-woo, folks, but I'm reading a meditation aloud in my new center that I had just built for my teacher to come and teach. I had a spiritual mentor. He never got here, by the way. He died 2 weeks prior to coming. But the bottom line was, I'm reading this service, this meditation service, and pretending there's 10,000 people in my room. It's just me. There's no one there but me. But I'm reading it aloud so I can hear the words. In midstream, I start to shake, literally uncontrollably, like this. I wind up on hitting the floor, and then I was levitating off the floor about 6 inches. I'm not on the floor anymore, I'm levitating. And then I hit the floor with a thump. And when I look up, there are these two whirling lights on my ceiling that come right down through my crown chakra and take me to the Orion constellation.
No.
Crazy. I went back to the home planet with these two, I'll call them God beings. They were 9 feet tall. Joe Dispenza talks about them in his seminars, that these large beings come down the sides of the auditoriums. Many times he has seen them. And they're here to remind us who we are and what we're doing here. So for me, that day when that happened, I came up and I told my beautiful wife, I said, Judy, I just had this experience. I don't know how long I was even down there, but I regained consciousness. And I told her, and in a loving way, she says, Kenny, you want to go to the hospital? Are you having a nervous breakdown? I said, no, this is what happened, Judy. And I became for 24 hours clairaudient, clairsentient, clairvoyant. People came in that day. I knew what they were going to say before they spoke. I adjusted them. My hands were guided by these two beings. The results were phenomenal. People who had been suffering for months with stuff got up, gone. But I wasn't doing it anymore. It was being done through me. So that was my experience. That was my quote, outer body experience that told me and affirmed to me what I've always innately felt of that attraction to that. Why would I go to that system and not the Pleiadians? Now, some people say, no, they came from Pleiades. I think Eon says she's from Pleiades.
As she
That's
does.
fine. That's fine. And the teacher that I had said, well, this universe that we're now living in, this 3D world, came from the Orions and the Pleiadians. And that's how Earth was born, with all our suns. And by the way, there are 12 planets, not nine. We're going to discover three more as time goes on, and a second sun. So there's a lot of stuff going on at a higher level that any of us know, Horatio. I'll put it that way.
Okay,
And
Horatio.
I believe there are other life forms in the universe,
Oh,
and I also believe we're being watched. I don't think we're here alone, is what I'm saying. We're holding the show up. We're on a tilt right now. We're on an 18-degree tilt, Mother Earth. And that's why we have such crazy weather patterns. When we get restored mean back to alignment with the divine design, then the earth can move forward, and do what it was supposed to do, which is to be heaven right here on earth. I always,
yes.
I always tell people, listen, everybody wants to get to heaven. There's plenty of angels up there. We need to bring heaven, whatever that means to you, to this earth. And that's how I see my role. I'm here as a connector between heaven and earth. And that's why I didn't die yet. I will drop my body at some point. It will no longer serve me. But I believe what I've experienced and what I'm sharing with people will reawaken in them and give them hope. I'm not making this stuff up. This is not my imagination speaking. This is my experience. Now, as a psychiatrist, you could say, hey, and I wasn't smoking anything or doing any drugs, folks. None of this. There was no chemicals involved. This was all au natural,
Oh, very supernatural, I would say. Uh,
above the ordinary.
Above
Yes.
the ordinary. And what you're doing for me synchronistically at this time um, is that I am finally figuring out how to save the transcript of these interviews I'm doing. And a lot of what you've been saying fit very closely with what I'm writing about and will be writing about pretty soon. So, one of the functions you are serving for me in writing Therapy for Humanity is to help complete, sharpen, show some of the ideas that I've been struggling to find words for. And it's not easy to take the concepts and turn them into something in two dimensions on a page. And that's what my job is. And I listen and I hear, and you are doing that very, very beautifully in this discussion, no matter how much you think I want to call you crazy, which of course you are, but that's all relative to the common way of thinking about what normal reality is. You have you have continued to reach for what the future might be, and I'm still trying to get you to answer the question that I've had before, is that we can talk about Pleiades, we can talk about Orion, we can talk about these god things coming down the sides to remind us. We can talk about Machu Picchu and Egypt. They don't have the feet on the ground problem that I am trying to address. And what I'm trying to address, you've described beautifully with Ram Dass and Wayne, that this is what the future of humanity must be, these dyads being able to come together in the way that you have been describing. Because, well, why are we here has been around for a long time as a question. I'm beginning to answer that as you did to create whatever heaven on earth might mean, and that's so vague. But to me, it's just have a lot of fun and keep learning and stick and connect with each other and dance and sing and trying to find out more about the mystery that surrounds us because that's part of the fun. And we can do that by playing with each other because playing is one of the best forms of research because you don't know what's going to happen. It's improvisation and stuff happens. And you always say, oh, look at that. So you get to enjoy from your own unique perspective the whole thing and a piece of it that you have that then you can communicate to others about and just have a good time rolling with the mystery.
I would say if you ask me why are we here, Bernie, my response would be to awaken from the illusion of separation to the reality of oneness. That's one. And the big picture for me, we're here to give and receive love. That's the big picture for as far
And
as I'm
I'm
concerned.
saying we're not good at that, Ken. That's what I'm trying to
Because we
say.
think we think we're separate from each other. But if
Well,
I perceive you as an aspect of me, it
that
behooves me to love you because I'm loving myself.
and then how do you do that? It's a technology that I'm referring to here
I
because
don't know.
those are the goals. And the way you say it, it just happens. And for some people, it can just happen. But for some people, they got to be shown what could happen and then get some idea about how to get there.
Well, again, as we sow, so shall we reap. We spread love, love comes back. It's a boomerang, as far as I'm concerned. And people know this. People, I believe people are basically good. I mean, we all have shadow. I got some shadows, still residues, comes up at night. I
I've
listen.
noticed.
I tell the committee, go someplace else, please. I don't want to listen to that voice. But I learned to accept it. I learned to that I am perfectly imperfect. I've given myself permission, okay? Because I always felt uh, I had to prove my self-worth. I had to become the valedictorian. I had to become the number one everything because underlying that, I didn't feel I was good enough or I deserved to be happy. I don't know where that got dumped in my 0 to 7 years, but I came in with it, who knows, but I got dumped. And so it took me a long, long time to overcome that. The
Yeah.
awareness was the first step. I
Yeah.
remember, and also my mother, I had an Irish Catholic mother and a Hebrew father. So I had great parents. But my mother told me early on, Kenny, rich people steal. And I believed that. I said, really, Ma? Really? But then I became wealthy, was relatively wealthy. And I said, that's not true. And I met a lot of wealthy people, and they're not stealing. They work their asses off to get what they want. They're generous. They support foundations and churches and charities. So I had to overcome that belief. But I had a limiting false belief that my mother gave to me.
Well,
So
those are limiting beliefs, and the idea of having to prove yourself however it came to be the best. We need people to do that, Ken, so that they can be better and better at something like what you have done, and then be able to give that up and be able to spread the ideas out that you have, through a lot of work and complications, been able to put together, as you described so beautifully today with me.
yeah, I think I finally gave myself permission, to
Permission.
overcome that negative self-talk. And I know it's not true. This
Well,
idea that,
let me say that I believe it helped you get to where you have gotten. And there came a time when it wasn't helping you anymore. And now you are at that place.
well, chronic physical pain
We'll
can
tell you
trump
that.
can trump your belief system, and it can trump your psychology. The
Eh,
body has a mind of its own, as you know. And here's what I used to tell people, and I still believe it. I am not my body. I have a body. I'm not my thoughts. I have a thought. I'm not my emotions or feelings. I have feelings. So who the hell are you? And as Ram Dass eloquently would say, I am the witnessing presence. I am
Wonderful.
life itself, having a temporary human experience.
All right.
And
Well, let's end it with that one. let's end with that one because we need to be able to stop. So
Well,
that
we could talk for days, but I hope, ladies and gentlemen, listening to this, if you should have an opportunity, I hope something Bernie said or I said makes your trip here a little less painful.